Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be going over in detail how to apply eyeshadow. I'm breaking it down for you step by step and sharing all of my tips and tricks with you. I have done this video in the past, but it's been like 2 years, right? It's been a while. I'll link my old video up here. I still really love that video. I think I go over like way too much detail in there, but I feel like it becomes a little less intimidating, especially if you're just starting out doing makeup. And even if you've been doing makeup a long time, it might be refreshing to hear some tips and tricks from someone else. You never know. I feel like I'm always learning new tricks. Every single brush that I used in this video is from Sigma. Thank you so much, Sigma, for sponsoring and collaborating with me on today's video. You guys know I've been using Sigma for years. They're one of my favorite brush brands, and I used some of their new ones that they just came out with in their Ultimate Blending brush set. So I hope you guys are excited. I hope you enjoy the video. Please subscribe and let's get started. Okay, so before you go and apply eyeshadow, you want to make sure you apply a primer. I think this is one of the most important steps, is making sure that you prime your eyes, because say you don't, your eyeshadow can very easily crease. That doesn't mean that it's always going to crease if you don't use eyeshadow primer, but for me especially it does, especially if you want it to last and you want it to go on really smoothly and you want the pigmentation to be there, you want to use a primer. So my favorite one is the Painterly Paint Pot from MAC. This technically isn't advertised as an eyeshadow primer. It's just like a cream color. You can use anything for this. You can use concealer, you can use like a regular eye primer, and then also set it with a powder. So it just kind of looks like this. This is close to my skin tone. This is actually going to blank out the color of my lids. I'm just applying this with a Sigma. Oh my god, it's completely worn off. This is the Sigma F75 brush. So yeah, I'm just putting this on my lids first. When I get to the eyebrow, I like to kind of carve that out a little bit. Not too much. I used to really carve out my brows, but kind of over that. So I just do a little bit just to give a little bit more definition. And then once you've got that like totally blended in, I like to go in with my finger and just press it in, just because my hands are warm. I mean, you can do it when they're cool too, but when they're warm, they really melt the product into the skin. You could actually just use your fingers to apply your primer too, but since I've got on my press-on nails, I like to use a brush. And now I'm gonna go and set those in place with some powder. You can use a translucent powder, you can use a powder like I'm using. I'm just using the Makeup Forever H104 powder. I mix a little bit of the yellow in too, and then I use this with a Sigma F35 brush. I just mix these together and press it in on the lids. This just ensures that the lids aren't too sticky, and if they are too sticky, then the eyeshadow, when you put it on, is just going to gravitate towards that sticky area. It's going to be really pigmented in one area and not so pigmented in others, or it'll be a little bit patchy. It's not all the time, it's just sometimes it can happen, so I feel like it's just a good idea to set it a little bit with powder. So the palette I'm going to be using for my eyeshadow today is the Sigma Warm Neutrals Volume 2 eyeshadow palette. Inside you can see it's got all of these different shades. And then I'm going to be using some new brushes from the kit that Sigma just came out with, the Ultimate Blending brush set. And there are some new brushes that they just launched as well. You guys know Sigma is cruelty-free. They have their new double-ended interlocking system and then the waterproof resin handle. This is just going to ensure the longevity of your brushes. They do have a 2-year warranty on all of their brushes. I've had my brushes for years. I've been very blessed that I've been able to work with them, and they've sent me more and more brushes, but I still use like my old beat up brushes and they haven't broken, which is awesome, but they do have that warranty just in case. I'm gonna start out with my first favorite brush. This isn't one of the new ones and it doesn't come in the kit, but this is one of my favorite brushes to start out with. And I feel like brushes are probably the most important thing when you're applying your eyeshadow, just because that's how you can create any look with anything. You can literally use one eyeshadow, but if you use like 4 different brushes, you can achieve a totally customizable look. So I'm gonna go into the Sigma Tapered Blending E40 brush. This is one of my older brushes. It has the copper ferrule here. I like to use a fluffy brush like this when going in with my first eyeshadow shade, just so that it kind of diffuses very softly. The fluffier a brush is, the softer it is going to apply. So I'm gonna start with the lightest shade that I'm gonna be using. on the eyelid area, and that color is Toasty. And I'm gonna pick it up on the tip part of the brush. I'm gonna tap off the excess. The reason I do that is so that you don't go in straight with like all of this product on your brush and then it like falls everywhere. You also wanna make sure that you set the under eyes with powder so that if it does fall at any time, you can just brush it away and it doesn't stick to like your foundation base. I also get a lot of questions on, is it better to do your eyeshadow first or your face makeup first? It truly is a preference. It's totally up to you. It's just if you do your face makeup first like I did today, just make sure to set it with under eye powder and you should be fine. So I'm gonna look down into my mirror. Anytime you do your eyeshadow, you don't wanna look straight into a mirror. Like if you're doing it like in your bathroom or in your bedroom and you have a mirror on the wall, it's gonna be a little tricky to do your eyeshadow. But even if you have it like that, you can totally nail it. Just tilt your chin up so you're looking downwards into the mirror. So I have this here, I'm gonna bring it below me. I'm holding back far on my brush. I'm not holding up close. I'm keeping it to the middle part or to the end, whatever's more comfortable. Just make sure you're not giving yourself like a super firm grip so that you're not like really applying so much eyeshadow. So I'm gonna bring it here and you can either rock back and forth like this or you can do little circles. I kind of mix it up and then whenever I get into the inner part of that crease, I switch my direction to start blending away. And then once I'm over here, I'm not gonna keep blending out because then it's gonna blend the shadow into my cheekbone. Now I'm changing the direction to go towards the inner part. You always wanna blend like towards the inside of the eye. When you first go in with your brush, you want to put the majority of the pigment right there, like closest to the crease. But then as you're blending, you know, the eyeshadow is kind of like dispersing on your eye and it's coming off of the brush. Now you can go higher and kind of just lightly go over those edges so that they're not as harsh. But you don't want to do that right away and as soon as you see those harsh lines, because then you're going to put a lot of pigment up there and make them even more harsh on accident. So one of the reasons why I actually like doing my face makeup first is because then I can do the entire eye look at one time. I actually feel like I do my makeup faster that way. So now what I'm going to do is pick up that same Toasty shade. I'm gonna bring my mirror above me so I can look up and access the lower lash line, and we're gonna tackle that right now and do the entire eye look at once instead of doing like the whole upper eye and then the whole lower eye. Like I just like to do it all at once. So if you're working with a mirror that is on the wall, now you want to put your chin down. I just put it up, but put your chin down and look up like this. It's gonna be a little tricky. If you have like a handheld mirror, it's gonna help you to do that so that you can bring the mirror above you and look up into it. You can even just really put that chin down and you can access the under eye area without irritating your eyes. Like I'm really under there. And do not be afraid, especially when you're starting out with this first eyeshadow shade. It's really light. So it's not gonna make you look like you've got like bags under your eyes or anything like that, especially like if you conceal ahead of time, like you're gonna be fine. So I just went in with this huge fluffy brush. This is probably one of the bigger brushes I'm gonna be using on my eyes. And I just went ham on that lower lash line and I still think it looks fine. I think it looks good. I don't think it looks like I have a baggy under eye or anything. You can even wipe off some of this on the back of your hand and go under even further. Like I'm literally where I would put concealer. And I think it really helps to blend it out. Do not be afraid. I think a lot of people are afraid of applying eyeshadow on the bottom lash line, and I just go crazy all the time. Don't be afraid. Practice at night, maybe before you go to bed, just to see what it looks like if you're too afraid to do it when it's like a special occasion or something. But I always go crazy whenever I do my bottom lash line. So now what I'm gonna do is just take that same exact color, the Toasty shade that we've been using, and just build up the color with the same brush. Anytime I'm creating an eye look, I will use the same shade multiple times with multiple brushes, and it will give you so much depth and dimension because depending on the brush that you're using, your eyeshadow can turn out completely different just depending on that alone, and it can look darker or deeper or more precise, and it's all just one color. So we will be using multiple shades in this, but I wanted to show you how I do that as well. So picking up a little bit more Toasty, and we're gonna get a little bit more Toasty in the crease and see it's getting even deeper. It's getting actually a little bit warmer. I feel like it was a nice neutral shade, and it still is, but it is getting a little bit warmer the more that we build it up. You can even kind of push it here if you want more pigment on that outer corner. I'm just kind of tapping it here. And as you can see, a lot of what I like to do in these videos is just say whatever's on my mind, and sometimes I forget to say stuff, but what I just noticed is as I went to go tap, because I wanted more pigment, if you saw, I crawled my hand up closer to the ferrule, because anytime you get closer to this, it's gonna be like more firm. So I kind of just did that unintentionally without even thinking about it, but I'm glad I picked up on it so I could share that with you. So I did want a little bit more deepness here, so I got closer to my ferrule and I'm pushing in to get that deeper pigmentation. I'm also adding more onto the bottom lash line. You have to make this face. I also bring it out here too to kind of like connect out here, make like a little, you know? Okay, so I think I'm ready to move on to a new brush and a new shade, but check this out already. Like if you're ever intimidated by eyeshadow, you could do just that. And it looks like I've got like a full blown, I mean, I at least think it looks good. I think it looks like I spent a lot of time on my eyeshadow and that was one brush and one eyeshadow. So let's move on to something else. So now I'm gonna go into the new E27 Detail Blending Brush. Looks like so. I'm gonna pull up my new E25 so you can see the difference. It's just a little bit smaller, a little bit more precise. My E25s that I've like used and abused, where do I have that? This is an old E25 of mine. It's dirty, sorry. But I just wanted to show you kind of like how it can fluff up. I personally like the way my brushes work, the like, I don't want to say the dirtier they get because you should definitely wash your brushes, but the more I use them, I definitely think that they fluff out and become the brushes that they're always meant to be when you use them more and when you wash them, and just, they really just become. So just wanted to say that because look at, these are both E25s and I think that they look kind of different when they're new and when they're old. But anyways, we're gonna go into the E27 and I'm gonna go into the shade Henna, which is that shade right there. I'm looking down into my mirror and now this is a lot darker of a shade, so you really want to make sure that you tap off that excess product. Anytime a shadow is darker, it's most likely going to have more fallout. I'm just going to tap this here into the outer corner. And the reason why I'm bringing a darker shadow here is because this is how you're going to create depth. You know how everyone talks about like contouring and highlighting for the face? We're basically contouring the eyes. Just patting. You do some little wiggly motions, you know, whatever. What's great about this brush is that it's a fluffy brush, but it's also flat here when you turn it to the side like this. So here it's facing front, but then when you turn it to the side, it gets thinner. So you can get into the like crease really nicely without making like a very harsh line. So it's gonna give you some more definition while being fluffy and blending at the same time. So sometimes when I'm explaining these things, like I sound so stupid. I just feel like I'm like, it's precise but fluffy, but you get me. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the henna, keep building it up, but you just wanna always go in with less than you think you need because it's so much easier to build up a shade rather than to take any of it away. And now I'm gonna switch to that E25 that I was just talking about. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of Toasty right on the tip of it, and I'm gonna go right where that henna met the crease, bring this from above. So the reason I'm bringing it from above is because I don't want to come from here and push that henna up too high. So when I'm thinking in my head, okay, come from above, we're just gonna blend it out, then that will naturally stay closer into the crease. In my last how to apply eyeshadow video, I mentioned how you want to like come from above on certain areas, and then naturally my hand like comes out and it doesn't look like I'm coming from above. However, thinking about that mentally while you're doing it will help you automatically blend in the correct direction, where if you're just thinking, oh, I gotta blend this out, you're naturally gonna come down here and blend it, and it's gonna blend it upwards. So even if it doesn't look like I'm coming like directly from the north, just think that in your head so that it will blend not too far up. I hope that makes sense. So bring it here. I'm holding kind of like at the midway point on my brush, not too far in, not too far out, because we do want some control here. We don't want to move this all types over the place. We just want to blend this here. And just now I was blending it this way, and then I just turned my brush this way to blend even more. That just made it a little bit more broad and less precise. Now, for me, that's just a touch too harsh. You see that line right? I'm gonna go into my E40, tap a touch of that toasty on it, and go right over that and blend around, blend it up into the brow bone. There we go. Now it's more smooth. So now I'm gonna use that darker shade down on the bottom lash line, and I'm gonna go into my Sigma E15 brush. This, again, it's used and infused, but I like this because of the shape. It's very, very thin here, so I can get right at that lash line without bringing that dark henna shade down too far. You know how I was talking about using that big fluffy brush on the bottom lash line, and I just kind of like go in and blend around? That's because it was a lighter shade and it's more forgiving, and it just kind of like blended into my skin almost. When you do a darker shade, you don't want to do that, and I think that's when you can end up looking sort of like a panda bear. So I'm going to take this into the henna shade. Again, we're working on the bottom, so you want to look up into your mirror. Take this and push it right at that lash line, right where the lashes meet your skin. You don't want to go too far down. Just bring it right where that ends. You can almost like wiggle it in between the lashes. And you can press or you can wiggle, but don't wiggle too much. Okay, so that's what that looks like right now with just that liner. I actually think it doesn't look that bad. Usually it ends up looking like a really dark, harsh line, which it still is. But now I'm gonna go into the E42 Precision Firm Blender Brush. This also comes in that brush set, and I'm gonna take a little bit of that toasty shade, tap off the excess, look up, and then just blend that out even more. It's really, really going to diffuse that shadow. This is a little bit of a longer, pointier, fluffy brush, so you can really get in there and blend that out in a precise way while still getting the fade and the blend that you're looking for. Okay, do you see the difference between this eye and this eye? This one just looks a little bit more smooth. This one has a little bit more harshness. I'm also gonna grab a little bit of whatever's left over on that brush and just kind of push and drag down again just to deepen it up again. Give that depth back in there. So while we're using this flat definer brush and that henna shade, I'm gonna show you something else that I've been doing a ton lately. I don't think I showed this in my last how-to eyeshadow video, so I'm definitely gonna show it now. I'm gonna use that same henna shade and the flat definer brush. We're gonna work on the top here, and you wanna look down into your mirror because we're working on the top. And I'm just gonna stamp this right here on the outer part of the lash line on the top. This is just gonna give your lash line definition without having to worry about eyeliner. I'm just kind of stamping it in so it gives like a really harsh line. And then once I keep kind of like stamping off the rest of the shadow, I'm then going to flick it upwards like this. Just push, drag, push, drag. Even use your finger to just kind of like soften that a little bit, and I just feel like it adds some definition to the top. It's not even that noticeable, but I feel like this is just really complementing like what's going on the bottom lash line, where this, it still looks pretty. It's just a dramatic difference between the bottom and the top there. Even though we have those bottom shades in the outer corner, because we did that like precise diffused line on the bottom, it just kind of like wraps the whole eye look together. And it's very easy to do. If you ever want eyeliner, you could even go in with like this russet shade to do this and go in like really dramatic. You can go in with the black. I like to do it with like a dark brown. You can use whatever you want, but like just go in there, tap it in, and you can use your finger to blend it out. You can use like another lighter brown to blend it out, and it just kind of diffuses it and gives you that eyeliner look without being like too hard. It's really easy. So I personally like matte eyeshadows better than shimmers. It's just my preference. So I'm gonna do that today for myself. However, well, maybe I'll just do that today. Should I just do a shimmer just to show ya? I think I'll show ya. I'm gonna take the Beaming shade, which is this light like champagne color, and I'm gonna go into the Sigma E58 cream color brush. You could spray this with like Fix Plus if you wanted to. It's not necessary. I feel like everybody's doing that now just because it makes your eyeshadows more metallic. but it's not necessary. So I'm just gonna pick that up here. You can pick it up like this, or you can wiggle it in the pan. Just make sure you tap off that excess, especially with the shimmer. So I'm looking down into my mirror, and instead of blending around like we were before, I'm just gonna push it and do like little soft drags. Pick up more, push and drag. I'm glad I did shimmer, it's been a minute. Popping this on the front part of the eyelid. And by the way, anytime I'm working on my left side, because I'm right-handed, I explained this in my last video, but I take the brush, I cross my elbow across my chest and bring this in this way. I don't come from the right and apply it because that's gonna be really tricky to get in there and make it precise. So I just literally bring this around and then it's like I have a left hand. You could even use your left hand, but that's just, it's just too much for me. Now I'm just gonna flip that over and pick up the color. I'm gonna pick up the color Iconic, and that's just gonna go in between the beaming shade and those outer corner shades. And as I get closer to the edge, like where that beaming shade is, I'm using less product. You want to use that similar to how you would a crease. So I'm just with a light hand sort of like feathering it into the beaming. And then while you're working on it, you can flip your brush back over, and now that has the beaming on it. Bring that into the darker shade. So now you have this sandwich color. I can actually see a little seam right there. I'm going to bring this here and just kind of work at that edge, so that you don't see the beaming and then the Iconic and then the darker shades. It should just be a nice gradual fade. So now to highlight my eyes, I'm gonna use the Sigma Detailed Lip Brush. It's the LO4. You do not have to use this for your lips. This is like one of my favorite eyeshadow brushes. If you ever do a cut crease, this in the crease is phenomenal. But I haven't done a cut crease in a while. Let me know if I should do a cut crease tutorial soon because it's been a minute. But I'm going to grab probably Humble mixed with Charmer, these two shades, just because this goes a little pinky. And I'm looking down into my mirror and I'm coming up and highlighting the inner corner. And I'm also gonna bring that up here on the brow bone. I'm just gonna take my fingers, just kind of soften that. And then this is the E38 Diffused Crease Brush. I'm gonna take this with absolutely nothing on it, and I'm just gonna go over and kind of just diffuse everything and soften it. This is one of my favorite things to do because even though everything's blended out, everything looks nice. This is just gonna kind of give it that nice, velvety, smooth, last finishing step, kind of like what you would do with like a finishing powder. I feel like that's what this does on its own. So I'm just gonna take this, wiggle it here. Not wiggle it, I'm doing little circles. Very lightly, I'm back far on the handle, and I'm also doing it underneath. And there's the finished eyeshadow look. I'm gonna go ahead and apply mascara, false lashes. I'm gonna do nude liner in the waterline. I guess I could just complete that on camera. I'm gonna use the Rimmel Nude Eyeliner. Anytime you do a brighter color in the waterline, that's gonna open up the eyes. Anytime you do a darker color, it will close in the eyes and make them smokier. All right, I'm gonna quickly apply some mascara. This is the MAC Extended Play Mascara. Okay, so I'm applying lashes. These are the velour lashes in Here to Slay. I have on the Dark Tone Duo Lash Glue. It dried down to like this dark gray color. So now I know that's time to pop it on. So I'm just gonna pop this on right now. Okay, and there is the finished eye look with the lashes, mascara, everything applied. So you can see what that looks like. All right, you guys, that completes everything for this tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed this and enjoyed this series again. I'm excited to spark it back up and kind of just go over all of my tips and tricks for so many different things. So please leave your recommendations down below for what you want to see next. A huge thank you to Sigma for sponsoring and collaborating with me on today's video. Working with them is always so much fun. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.